I give credit to TNA. This past Thursday's Impact episode was very interesting and thoroughly entertaining to me about 95% of the way through. There was only really one segment that gave me any real pause or that I had any real problem with at all. And even in that case, it's more of a nitpicky type of gripe than it is a real objection or a real problem. I thought this was a good, solid show this past week. I try now as a wrestling fan to stay away from spoilers because I want to be able to experience a show as if it's the first time I'm watching it. I know nothing that's going to happen, so that way I can get the real reaction. I'm going in with no preconceived notions, and I'm able to experience it, I feel, as I should experience it, and be able to form my opinions based off of that. However, I find it odd that for whatever reason, TNA put together a promotional video package this week hyping up Impact, basically giving away the fact that there was going to be an X Division title change, and that part of the major storyline for the show for the week was who was really Suicide. That was very odd to me. It's one thing when the dirt sheets and people on the internet are spoiling your product for your other fans. It's another thing, I think, when you as a wrestling company are spoiling the results for your wrestling fans. Just very, very odd to me. It really is. The X Division title match was Sabin and Suicide and Kenny King. Suicide is your new X Division champion, supposedly. It was interesting, though. You have Hogan come out with this guy that's all stammering and, stumbling around, acting all hurt and everything. And if you watched ROH or other indie products in the past, you know that it was T.J. Perkins who had been reported to be the person in the Suicide mask this time. Thought it was very interesting that Hogan said that T.J. Perkins had been Suicide for years. I wonder what Daniels and Kaz had to say about that. But the whole storyline that was going to play out through the course of the night is who was this person that beat up T.J. Perkins backstage that he couldn't see him? Who was this person that assumed the Suicide persona? Who was this person that ended up winning the X Division title? That was a storyline that played out throughout the entire night. And think about it this way. This was an X Division storyline that, whether you like it or not, did involve Hulk Hogan. And we know TNA takes Hulk Hogan very, very seriously. So you know that this means that they're taking this X Division storyline very, very seriously. And they treated it as, in my opinion, the most important, well, besides staying in the main event Mafia stuff, the most important part of this week's show. And I thought that was a very, very good thing. Mickie James as a heel is just better, and she sure is sexier. But it sure makes for a more interesting knockouts division. We don't have a lot of knockouts. And pretty much everybody that is actually on the knockouts roster, we've seen enough, we've seen too much, da-da-da. But this match with Velvet and Mickie for the knockouts title, God, this was good. Not necessarily the match itself, but the setup of Mickie trying to give Velvet one more chance to get out of the match. Then the match happens, Mickie ends up winning, she retains, and then you have the post-match interview where, basically Velvet is an emotional wreck, and she can't handle the fact that she lost, and it's too much for her. This felt very real to me. This felt very good. Too often, we don't get that in wrestling, where you get the post-match interview. A lot of times you might get the post-match interview with just the winner, but you don't get it with the loser, and you don't capture those real emotions. You could maybe knock Velvet interacting here somewhat, but she was effective enough to get the point across that that belt meant the world to her, and that losing it really tore her up inside. I thought this was a great segment. It was funny with the gut check as I was watching this. This is an example, a situation where you have two people that most of the internet crowd is going to be familiar with, and even some of the non-internet crowd, because you've got Big O, Zack Ryder's friend, taking on Ryan Howell, Skid Mark from Tough Enough. I will say this about Ryan Howell's gimmick or character or whatever the hell you want to call it. I thought it was very interesting, his entrance. That doesn't mean it was good. I just thought it was interesting. At least I will say that they're giving him a shot. They were giving Big O a shot. To me, out of the two, I probably think Big O has a little bit more going for him. But do I think either one of these guys, frankly, at this point in time, is ready for primetime player? Sadly, frankly, not. Even though it involves two jobbers that I don't really have an affinity for at all, I do have to give credit where credit is due. Jesse Goddard's Robbie E. Their tag team name, Bromans, is fucking awesome. I thought it was incredibly cool on Raw this week to see in the main event Randy Orton doing the job for Daniel Bryan in a big way by losing to him via submission. Randy Orton tapping out to, of all people, Daniel Bryan, not a John Cena or a Triple H or somebody of that ilk or caliber or name, but a Daniel Bryan. That was encouraging, and I like to see that type of stuff, trying to help out a newer face to the company. And when you look at Magnus versus Robert Roode, this was one of the 2 BFG Series matches on this week's show. The fact that Robert Roode did a clean job for Magnus speaks volumes to, I think, what TNA thinks of Magnus as a performer, and I think it speaks volumes to Robert Roode being a guy saying, hey, this is a young guy. It's a BFG series. I can't win every single one of them, so why not lose the match clean? Why do I have to sit there and lose it by some BS or whatever the case might be? Magnus beat him clean. That was really good. And that really kind of warmed the cockles of my heart a little bit. It would help if TNA actually gave us a reason to fully give a shit about Magnus, because I really feel he could be a big star for that company, especially on an international level. But imagine Robert Roode did a clean job for Magnus. Just think about that. Now imagine if John Cena ever fucking did that for anybody in WWE not named The Rock. Magnus versus Robert Roode was one of the BFG Series matches on this week's show. The other one was Samoa Joe versus Mr. Anderson. If you're going to ask me to recall a lot of the details of the match, frankly, I can't. I'm just being honest with you. And I think that's in part due to the fact that TNA has done a lot over the past 3 years to really make it almost impossible for me to give a whole lot of a hell of shit about Samoa Joe. And since Mr. Anderson is in that dumbass faction, Aces and Eights, and some of the other stuff they've done to him over the past 2 years, I don't really give a shit about him either. But what was interesting is after the match, you've got Aces and Eights come out and they start attacking Samoa Joe, and then here comes Sting and here comes Kurt Angle to kind of save the day. And we find out that Samoa Joe is the 3rd member of the Main Event Mafia. Now this does, I suppose, have some storyline sense to it, some history to it, but it also brings up an interesting storyline question, doesn't it? Sting was supposed to be upset at the active roster because during his title match at Slammiversary against Bully Ray, nobody from the active roster came out of the locker room to help him. Yet the first 2 people he's turned to for the Main Event Mafia are 2 people that were on the active roster at Slammiversary. That's Kurt Angle and then Samoa Joe. Now you can say obviously Kurt Angle was going to be in the Main Event Mafia because he was a part of the original incarnation of it, and that's fine. But you can say Samoa Joe being in there, okay, that's fine. What wasn't part of the premise was he was supposed to find his family, find people that he could trust, and that he was mad at all of the people that left him out there basically on his own at Slammiversary. So why are 2 of the first people he turns to are 2 people that were on the active roster at Slammiversary? I don't really get that. And frankly, the other thing I don't get is why is Samoa Joe being added to the Main Event Mafia when he basically hasn't been a main event player for TNA in over 3 years? Can anybody answer me that? Exactly. God only knows who the next couple of members are going to be. I'll assume since Kurt Angle's in the faction, I'm going to assume that Rampage Jackson will be one. I would think maybe in terms of another one, you've got Abyss floating out there. Wouldn't he kind of make some sense for this group? I don't know where they're going to go. I have a feeling they're going to go in a surprising direction with 1 or 2 of the other members. I wonder how big this group is ultimately going to be. I mean, they've got some big names in the group with Sting, Angle, and Samoa Joe. I'll give them that. But I know there's somebody that Smokey wants to see in the group.
Hello, ladies. Yeah, got 2 items of business I need to tend to really quick before I go ahead and take my rest for the evening, because it is damn hard work being this good looking. You say, what you mean? How come you so good looking, Smokey? Because that's what I do. That's what I do, motherfucker. Number 1, we talk about a new Main Event Mafia. And I know Smokey's eyes didn't deceive me last week when I saw on Impact a black hand shaking Sting's hand. To me, that is a clear indication that I hope TNA have done come to their fucking senses. I'm so sexy, I can't even contain myself. Yeah, I'm so excited. That better mean the return of the Pope D'Angelo De Niro, motherfucker. When I'm thinking main event mafia, a new main event mafia for TNA, who better than the Pope D'Angelo De Niro? Who better? Nobody better, motherfucker. Now that I got that out of the way, I'm gonna get real serious here for a second. Now, Sled Daddy, you done pissed me the fuck off. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, there was originally two members of Deuces and Fours, two founding members. That was Smokey and that was Precious, Lord rest his soul. Yeah, Precious unfortunately no longer with us. He in the big catnip heaven patch in the sky, motherfucker, doing Deuces and Fours business up there. Yeah, 'cause that's what he do, motherfucker. That was my dog, so to speak, even though he's a cat. So you can imagine my surprise when the Schleg Daddy decided he would go ahead and put somebody else in Deuces and Fours without consulting the founder Smokey. And furthermore, he gonna put a motherfucking dog in Deuces and Fours. What type of specious, racist bullshit is this? Oh, we all like Summer. She's so cute. She a beagle. Yeah, she poop all over. Man, shut the fuck up. Deuces and Fours is Smokey's house. And if and when I determine that Summer is indeed worthy of Deuces and Fours, that will be my call in my place at my time. And if Schleg Daddy gonna keep pushing this shit on everybody about this damn dog, we gonna have some real problems, motherfucker. Probably fool killer idea, that fucking cracker.
As I mentioned earlier in this review, the predominant storyline really, or one of the two predominant storylines of the night, was who was Suicide? Who took out TJ Perkins? Who put on the Suicide gear? Who actually won the X Division title? You had Hogan trying to find out, threatening to strip him of the title if he didn't reveal himself by the end of the night. You had Bully Ray going around and looking. You know, this was a big deal throughout the whole night. And I was hoping that it wasn't going to disappoint me because, again, like I said, the only spoiler that I got was the one teaser video that TNA put out. I didn't read any spoilers or anything like that, so I didn't know who was in the Suicide gear. So we get to the end of the night. You've got a storyline revolving around the X Division title. You know, obviously somebody has taken out TJ Perkins and assumed the Suicide persona for a reason. I didn't know if it was going to be Daniels, or it was going to be Kaz. Hell, it could have been Jeff Hardy. You know, any number of people. I was wondering who it was actually going to be. So the segment happens. You've got Hogan trying to figure out who it is. You've got Bully Ray trying to figure out who it is. And wouldn't you know, of all people, it's the greatest man that ever lived, Austin freaking Aries. And he is the X Division champion. And he's going to cash it in, I believe it's July 18th on Destination X. And he's going to take on Bully Ray for the TNA World title. Bravo, TNA. Bravo-fucking-o. This was a hell of a finish to the show. This was a great segment, a dramatic segment to me. I popped, I marked out when Austin Aries revealed himself as Suicide. Because I think about it, he's beaten Bully Ray before. He was the man that, you know, came up and won when he was presented with Option C. You know, he's the one that actually cashed it in last year, became TNA World Heavyweight Champion. So there's actual believability that a guy like Austin Aries, who's been World Champion before and beat Bully Ray before, you know, there's actually a belief there that he could actually become the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but there's a shred of believability there. It's got me wanting it to happen. It's got me feeling like it needs to happen because it does. Austin Aries is going after Bully Ray. Business has definitely picked up for me. And it's got me a little more excited for the next few weeks of Impact. No question about it. Like I said again, in general, this was actually a pretty good episode of Impact. And I hope TNA gives me a few more of these in a row because I was relatively pleased watching it this past Thursday.